from Unit 1, pages 7 to 9 of your Secondary English Book 3. And our learning objectives this week will be to define story writing, to explore the elements of story writing, and to identify the elements of story writing in the given lesson. A narrative or a story is a description of a series of events. The events can be based on certain facts, or they can all be made up or fictitious. The main elements of a story writing, as you're already familiar with, are setting, characterization, plot, conflict, climax, resolution, theme, and point of view. Not only we will review the main elements of story writing, we will also try to figure them out in our reading lesson, which is The Giant Tick from Tales of My Uncle Harry by Keith Garvey. This is a tall tale, and a tall tale is a story that may or may not be true, but that contains details that are hard to believe, as per the Cambridge Dictionary. So a tall tale is a kind of humorous story about something that seem impossible or exaggerated happenings. The first major element, the plot of a story, is the main idea of the story. This is a chain of connected events in the story, the what of the story. We will try to figure out what the plot of the story is in The Giant Tick. We will try to see what the beginning of The Giant Tick is, what is the crisis, and how it is resolved. We encourage you to read the story before coming to the class, but we will discuss it later in detail in our online session. The setting is the environment, the place, the mood, the time, and era of the story. The setting is written with a view to make the reader feel himself to be or herself to be a part of the story. As one writer in The Guardian puts it in the way that I feel myself hearing the strange noises, feeling the ground slither with snakes, and sweating in the heat of the penetrating environment of the jungle's overpowering force. We will try to see what the environment in The Giant Tick is. What are the places or venue in the story? What is the mood of the story? What are the times in which the story is set? The characters or characterization in a story is also very important. There can be a central character called the protagonist around whom the story revolves. Then there can be an antagonist in the story who is often called the villain as well, and he or she fights or opposes or oppresses the protagonist. Then we can have a sidekick who is not always in the spotlight but very close to it, because he or she is the second most important character in stories. Then there can also be other tertiary characters, and a well-rounded story needs a few tertiary characters as well. So in The Giant Tick, who is the protagonist? Who is the antagonist? Who is the sidekick? Are there any tertiary characters? We will figure all this out while reading the story and while discussing it in our online session. The crisis or the climax is a turning point of action. This is the highest point of interest and excitement in the story. An important part of all tall tales. So all tall tales do necessarily require a crisis or a climax. Try to figure out while reading the story that what is the highest point of interest and excitement in the story. At what point you are convinced or you are eager to look at the resolution of the story. The resolution is the final outcome of the story, the ending of the story that resolves that crisis. This leaves a final and the lasting imprint on the reader's mind. While reading The Giant Tick, try to see how the story resolves. What is the resolution? What different resolution could the story have? We will discuss about the resolution of this tall tale in our online session as well. So, in this lesson, we will talk about the basic elements of story writing. We will identify those elements in a given story, The Giant Tick, and we will also discuss how different elements of story writing are incorporated in a given story and how you can incorporate them in your stories as well. So this is all about this week's lesson. We hope to see you in our Google Meet session for a complete interactive session.